Anthony Mauceri is a serial entrepreneur, maker, and an alumni of Stevens Institute of Technology. In the past few years, he has been involved in a multitude of startups and nonprofits, ranging from the largest smart bus sign manufacturer in New Jersey to baby monitoring AI systems. Aside from that, he is also part of the leadership at the Stevens Startup Incubator iSTEM and the Guinness World Record holding Minecraft project, Build the Earth.
Our conversation with him followed an interesting journey. From building complex machinery like 3D printers completely from scrap parts, overcoming the challenges of traditional education, and then paving his own path, founding over 10 startups that aim to provide value to the world. Anthony was eager to share all of his insights and advice, not just for students and founders, but for anyone wanting to discover the incredible intricacies of technology and engineering.
Hello, my name is Zidanni,
And I'm Emilio.
and you are World.
We hope you enjoy our conversation.
I guess a little bit of background. So I'm a Stevens alumni. I graduated in May of 2024. And I've always been interested in making things, reverse engineering things, repurposing old things. So I converted the basement of my parents' house into a machine shop, with all like home built things. So, um, one of the first projects that I did was I found a bunch of like old construction conduit, and a old Arduino and a ramps board, and I built my first 3D printer out of literal garbage, like old 2D printers, construction scrap and whatever. And that was my first 3D printer. It sucked. Still have it because I grew attached to it. But then that grew into the next thing, which more 3D printers, and then eventually industrial equipment, so CNC machines, laser cutters, and whatever. Um, and so, that curiosity for building stuff kind of started from like taking apart old VHS players or like whatever scrap I had around the house. I would take it apart and I realized like zooming in, all of these really complicated mechanisms are really like the same few basic simple mechanisms, but that build onto each other. And now you have these really complicated problems. So you can find really complicated problems and zoom in and find something manageable and then start from there. So I love making stuff. But when I go to school, my grades sucked. So like in elementary and middle school, like I was not the best student. I was failing a lot of my courses. I did a little bit better in high school, but still not the best grades. So um I ended up doing around this time I also didn't believe that college was important. I figured like I'm self-taught. Everything I learned was from the internet, and like what do I could just teach myself this. Like, what do I need to learn from school? But my mom and my dad had like differing opinions, which is fair, and they viewed the value of a college education. So my mom ended up finding this pre-college program local to the area. So I'm from Long Island, and it was at Stevens Institute of Technology, which is where we are, by the way. Uh, and I did the free college program here. It was in entrepreneurship, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Um, but we had the problem that Stevens is a relatively difficult school to get into, especially considering my grade points. Um, and I didn't have the grades to get in here. So my mom was actually talking to one of the guidance counselors, admissions counselors at the school, talking about how much I loved the school and how much my grades sucked. Of course, that was a great. I was feeling like, oh yeah, mom, they're really helping my chances of getting into this school. But they introduced me and my mom to the iSTEM program. Have you guys spoken at all about the iSTEM program on this
No,
podcast?
okay,
We
so
actually have.
yeah, a little bit. So the iSTEM slash Launchpad program is a program at Stevens, our school, basically centered around entrepreneurship. It's like an incubator for students at
Yeah.
Stevens, basically, regarding startups. And Anthony was one of the first, was part of the first batch
Oh, wow.
of
Really?
this, of
First
this
class,
incubator,
I guess you could say.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. So the iSTEM program is an entrepreneurship program here at Stevens. So Launchpad is an entrepreneurship program here at Stevens. iSTEM is built on is an entrepreneurship program here at Stevens, but iSTEM looks for students from high school who might think a little bit differently, who don't have the best of grades, but are really passionate about solving problems or about making things or improving on things or just people whose brains think a little bit differently and they're not their traditional like top of the class students. We don't really care about grades. So the admissions officer at Stevens was like, look, there might be something I could help your student with. It's like a brand new program. I can't really talk to him about it. I need to speak to your guidance counselor. So I got my guidance counselor. I was like, you need to speak to Stevens. And I found out about the iSTEM program, which I did not realize I was the pilot for. When they said it was a new program, I wasn't expecting this new. So the program that I was pitched kind of didn't super exist. But at the time, but what was awesome is like I ended up getting into my dream school because of it. So thank you so much, Emilio, for the iStunt program. He's our largest donor.
Not this, not
yeah,
this
not
Emilio.
me.
Not this Emilio.
I
Emilio
wish.
Fernandez.
Yeah, I wish.
But this Emilio is gonna do some awesome stuff too.
Yeah,
I know.
thank
Definitely,
you,
yeah.
thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah. So shout out to Stevens and
Yeah,
Emilio Fernandez.
that's amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, so during my freshman year, I was involved with a few different startups. I was working on Bira, which was a AI baby monitoring software. And then come COVID,
Well, sorry, can we just pause right there for a second?
Yes.
So your first startup was at Stevens. It was Bira,
Bira,
an AI baby monitor. So
Yes.
what grade were you?
freshman.
Okay, freshman. I
So-
think sorry.
This Bira was a project started by Jocelyn and Dan,
Mhm.
who are Stevens alumni. So they were already working on it at the time. And then I heard about their project, and I had already had that mechanical, electrical engineering background. While in school, I started like in high school. The way I would pay my bills was doing reverse engineering, and like CAD drafting and stuff like that.
Wait, so for frame of reference, this is like 2022-ish?
No, this is 2018,
Or
2019.
okay, so this was before the AI bubble. Or-
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, this dude got on an AI startup without even using like like Cursor, like
Yeah, no.
like
Yeah. We were
or
using
ChatGPT.
like a Raspberry Pi, computer vision.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
so I think they started 2018. I joined the project in 2019, and that was my freshman year. So I was a freshman in 2019. And so I was working with them with designing CAD models for it, a little bit of the Raspberry Pi stuff. And so we created a baby monitoring system that used computer vision and a bunch of different sensors to like monitor what the baby was doing and kind of give parents the peace of mind, more than just being able to listen to sound or even just see visual.
Was it your idea?
No, it was not my idea. This was something that Jocelyn and Dan were working on beforehand. But I saw that like Jocelyn and Dan actually they're still doing amazing stuff. So Dan is in the AI space. Jocelyn is working for a hardware company, electronics and hardware currently. I think Jocelyn's out in California now. But this was their idea, but I saw that like, this was something that I could help them with the CAD aspect and like creating like product development and stuff like that. Because going back before Stevens and still into today, like this is what primarily pays my bills, is I do product development consulting. So I help people with building minimum viable products of their ideas or taking things and improving them, so taking things that are already fabricated and optimizing the way they are produced. Or the way I really got started with this was taking like 1910s, 1920s Harley Davidson parts, drawing them up and then manufacturing them using modern manufacturing techniques. So I was bringing more of the like product development side of things to Europe, because it's easy to make a product once. It is really difficult to make it 500, 1,000, 500,000 times.
Yeah. Wow. So just to clarify, taking 1910s, 1920s, I guess those drawings, not CAD obviously because it didn't exist, but like the engineer's drawings.
No. So I will take the original parts.
Yeah. Oh.
And then create modern drawings with them. Because you have to bear in mind, right? 1910s, 1920s, a lot of the dyes and toolings that were used for those parts have been long gone.
Yeah.
Right? Like we went through two world wars after
I
that.
guess for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
Obviously that, but also like materials and like regulation wise, I could see how it become very outdated.
There's a lot of different ways like that. Yeah, so there's a lot of materials that don't exist anymore due to environmental concerns. The tooling has been scrapped for metal purposes because of two world wars. Also, just like how many dyes are Harley Davidson going to stockpile, right? So, but there's a lot of motorcycle enthusiasts that really care about they're keeping their pieces of history alive. So I got involved with that with a guy in Jersey City, and I still work with him a little bit today. So
Very cool. Very, very cool stuff.
That's awesome. So this was about your first startup.
yeah, so that was my first startup. Around my second semester of Stevens, something very interesting happened. The whole world decided to shut down, unfortunately, because of COVID. So when that happened, I moved to my second startup, which was Tier 1 Education. So Tier 1 Education was a software platform where you would take a picture of your syllabus. This is still more in the AI space, actually. You would take a picture of your syllabus, and it would take a quick personality test, and it would parse the internet to find content relevant to the courses that you are studying. And then based on your personality type. And it would also pair you with a study buddy. So like someone who's older, but learns the same way as you, and that can help you guide through your courses. So
Somebody who's also using Tier.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Tier has that like real life tutoring aspect of it where it's matching you with people, like mentors and peers at your same university or studying similar courses that can help you. But then also the, finding content relevant to you. So I'm not a good student and from any stretches of the imagination. So, for me, Tier is really just a platform that can help me find content online because I'm not going to be able to sit in a lecture or look through a textbook and understand the material. Like I need to see the stuff. I need to interact with it. I need to make the connections between like what makes it break here and what allows it to. Fun fact and unrelated. In my garage, so I have a machine shop in my garage. And I sucked at fluids. I was really bad at fluids. And in fluids every week, this is just to give you some ideas to like how I learned. We would have weekly homework assignments that were like real world problems, but they weren't. They were drawings of like fluids. And I would do the theoretical math that the professor wanted. But then I also would want to understand it. So I would physically recreate in real world the problems that we solved every single week. And I told the professor this. He thought I was a little crazy. I think he did appreciate it. Of course, in real life, none of the math worked out. Like everything that was theoretical, like the measurements I was observing were not the same. But anyway, like I did enjoy that. So like I'm a very hands-on person. I'm a very visual person. I hate to interact with things. And a lot of the study materials that I was given in courses don't follow that. I don't know if it's like, I think it's an education-wide thing, but I would imagine most people in Stevens are the type of people who could read a textbook or go to office hours and understand the material. That is not me. So I would spend so much time. Actually, this is kind of partially how Tier started. I would spend so much time manually looking at the internet to find videos, explanations of what was going on, or experiments or things like that. Like I needed to see stuff. And I created a Google Doc of all of these different resources to help me in my classes, which then became one of the first versions of Tier, which was just a catalog of all the content that I found. But then eventually we were using Scrapey and Python to parse the internet to try to like find, not just for me, but based on a few different types of personalities and a few different types of learning styles, like different content, categorizing them. So that was Tier. Parallel to that whole thing happening, with the iSTEM program, at this time, we had a tiny little closet, so much smaller than this room. I can't demonstrate the size here, but imagine a room with a small server rack, a chair, a desk, another chair, and it's a supply closet in the back of a lab. That is what we had.
So wait, so it wasn't always the library building? Which,
No.
We'll put a photo of it in the podcast. So
Insert photos here.
Because it's amazing. Like Zidanni actually brought me in there for the first time, I think maybe like a week ago when we were planning on, what we're going to do for the podcast. And like, yeah, I was blown away. I was like,
I want to see if I could get you guys access to the old lab, the old closet. I don't know if we're going to be able to get there, but I feel like that would be good comparison. If we can get photos of the old lab.
Yeah, we'll put them here too. Yeah.
I feel like this interview is going this conversation is going like a million miles.
Yeah, no,
that's me.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's the way it should be. That's what we want. We want the entropy of it all.
I mean, I guess like related to that.
I'm trying to go around the timeline.
I mean, just like in the same way you're pivoting between points in conversation, you often pivot between what you're doing currently. Same way like you did from bureau. In during your freshman year, you went from bureau to tier.
Yeah.
I guess like advice that we'd appreciate from you is, when do you think is the right time to pivot? Like, because a lot of people think that their startup is their baby. They dedicate a lot of time,
tier was
uh,
difficult.
a lot of
Yeah,
passion into it. So I was wondering, yeah,
yeah, like
how about yeah.
what stage in particular, like whether that is based on metrics like users or whether that is literally just, you're at the stage where it's an MVP and you just want to see if you could do it and then you're done. Like what stage is that for you when you decide that you want to leave?
So that's typical. So I'm gonna come back to that point, and again, remind me so that I make sure I go
All right.
back to that point, because I know I'm gonna go on a tangent. One thing that I'm gonna say first, because I see this as a problem, like with a lot of the students in the i7 Launchpad program and everywhere, is people get fixated on the perfect thing to solve. And as a result, they never actually end up building anything. They're fixated on, like, I need to have the perfect idea. Um, a better solution, in my opinion, is you just start building. Whether it's just start with something. It could just be as simple as like looking up a tutorial on how to build a calculator app, or finding some old components and taking them apart and seeing if you can solve a problem with them. Just create a box full of garbage that is free and see what problems you can solve with the garbage, right? Go to hackathons or game jams, just start building stuff. And what you'll learn is, from actually building things, right? A lot of the same problems you're going to solve from the first thing you do, or the second thing that you do, or the third thing you do, the nth number of things that you do, a lot of the same problems are the same. So you're now getting better at building stuff, which then you can reapply to the nth number of things that you're doing. So just get started now, and that's literally the best thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Now back to that point. When's a good time to pivot? Because there's also that cost fallacy, where it's like you've now invested time, and as you invest more and more time,
Yeah.
more and more resources, like, when is a good time for us to jump ship and move to something else? The answer is it depends. And it's really up to you and the team. So I kind of fell in love with Tier. Because yeah, it was my baby. I spent like 3 years working on Tier. Um, the reason why I ended up jumping ship with Tier was because we ended up going through like 2 or 3 different sets of teams. And it was like every few months, or every year or so, um, we would end up working with different sets of people. And then it was a lot of like going back and training, like, hey, here's how to use the different tools that we were working on. And then now, finally, after a few months of getting accustomed to working together, now it's like, okay, now we're building new feature sets.
Team as in hired employees, or team as
No,
in
no, no,
co-founders?
just co-founders.
Okay.
Yeah. Team as in co-founders. And it just became difficult to became difficult. So we had a bunch of different sets of teams, and then it was a lot of time spent like kind of backtracking before we were actually moving forward, and adding new features, and like going back to actually building the product. And the other side of things is, like, I am a very mechanical person. Like, I consider myself a full stack engineer. So I do electrical, I do mechanical, I do software, I do embedded systems. I could do a little bit of front end, I could do a little bit of back end. Interestingly, I prefer back end. So like I do a little bit of everything, but my specialty, or the thing that I do the best, is hardware and mechanical and fabricating and that sort of things. And I loved Tier, and it resonates a lot with my mission of like education being broken. There's no one size fits all with education, which I will get back to, because I do still believe that I am working towards that mission.
Yeah, I want to get back to that too for later, for sure.
And so after working on Tier for like, I think it was my 3rd year, I decided to start working on Artisan 3D, which is now a software tool kind of built in. I guess it's still technically software. A software tool built into MP&D, which is my consulting firm. But so MP&D is a software tool. Or if you guys recall, I mentioned that I do a lot of reverse engineering. But that's a lot of repetitive stuff. It's a lot of taking calipers and measuring parts and drawing them up in CAD. And it's not using a lot of my brain. I would prefer solving new problems, right? Like building minimum viable products of things that don't exist, like physical things. Let's say you have an idea for this crazy new, device that makes the lives of parents so much better, right? So heck yeah, like let's build it, like that type of stuff, creating new things. That is what I enjoy doing the most. But a lot of the CAD work is kind of what pays my bills or paid my bills historically. So I started designing Artisan 3D, which is or specifically Artisan 3D Mesh Analyzer, which is a software tool where you take a 3D scan of an object and it dimensionalizes, or you upload it to the web portal, and then it allows you to dimensionalize it into a parametric model and draw it up in CAD. So now you can just take the 3D scan and now have these engineering drawings with dimensionalized. And my logic is I'm not quite there yet, but what I want to be able to do is after testing it a lot and feeling like it's in a good spot, I can then just go to my clients who already pay me to draw up drawings for them and just say, hey, like I'm no longer offering this as a service, but pay me X dollars a month and buy these 3D scanners that we recommend. And now this process is automated. So instead of paying me this much money, you can now, pay a small monthly subscription fee and do the same work for me. So now I'm allowed to then spend more of my time solving new problems and really using my brain, which is a lot more fun than just, drawing things up with calipers and putting them into the computer. So that was the kind of pivot there. And I think it was both a struggling to find a good team with Tier. And just a rule of thumb for all future entrepreneurs out there, I feel like 1 year is a good mark. Like you don't, it's like a honeymoon phase with any relationship, right? So when you find your co-founders, work with them for like a year, in my opinion, before really forming any, committed relationship with them, with, a partnership or what have you.
Well, how do you even find a co-founder in the first place? Can you say when
It's
you found your
difficult.
co-founders?
Yeah.
It's difficult. Finding good people is really difficult. And even when you get to the point where like you're hiring people, finding good people is really difficult. Whether it's a co-founder, whether it's an employee, good people are really hard to find.
Well, what makes a good person? What makes a good founder? What are their traits?
Well, I don't believe there's any bad people, right? So a good founder is going to be someone that you work well with. And I mean, think of like any group project that you're working on in school, right? Like you're going to have people who you click with and you could work really well with. And you're going to have people where, you don't work well with. So it's whoever you work really well with. And a lot of times it's complementary traits. You don't want two people who think exactly the same. You want people who can bring different perspectives to the table. And the other thing is it might not be your best friend. I don't always think that friends sometimes I'm sure friends can make the good founders. But it's like the old saying, like your best friend might not be your best roommate. It's kind of the same thing with forming, running a business. But there's no answer to that. Like there's no formula of like, these are good founders. Because at the end of the day, it's up to how you work and how well you work with the other people. I will say though that like one trait that I really look for is passion. I don't care about what you know right now because you can always learn and grow and figure it out. So what I really look for is passion. If you're really passionate about the mission, and mission oriented is another aspect. So being very passionate and being very mission oriented, where you are fixated, like you are kind of obsessed with solving this problem in the world, and you're very passionate about figuring out whatever you need to figure out to make it happen. Right. So I don't care about where you are today, but I care that you're passionate enough to figure it out and do what needs to be done to make it happen. And something that I think is worth noting is the dream job is still a job, right? So I would say that I'm very fortunate that like I'm able to live my dream right now. But it's still a job, right? Like there are still days where I don't want to get out of bed, or I don't really want to work on this client project right now, or I don't want to go to this meeting or whatever. But you still have to push through and get yourself to get out of bed and actually make it happen. And I feel like the best motivation is not financial at all. Like, that's like one of the worst motivators, in my opinion. Everyone's different, but it's the mission, right? It's the value that you're bringing into the world, or the things that you're doing to improve people's lives. Or I'm going to go back to education. It's like the biggest thing that's kind of pained me in life. Like being labeled a failure my entire life, and then that I feel like is so broken. And then I was given a chance, but I want to make sure that like everyone else is given a chance and everyone else is able to pursue traditional education or build the things that they want to build. And I think education has done a really bad job at doing that for a lot of people. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Everything you just said, honestly, I could say everything really resonated with me. Like from, like there being no perfect founder to, a good founder having passion. I think that's very true. Like I've worked on, obviously you have way more experience than I do, but in the one project that I've sort of worked on with a few people who, when we thought, this could be an actual thing, like let's, try to do this. It just felt like not only did we have different perspectives on it, but I feel like I was like obsessed. Like I wanted to just always work on it all the time. So much so even over schoolwork sometimes where my other, I guess, founders, you could say, just weren't as interested in doing so, which is fine. Like we just had different goals. And that's why it's sort of like, I guess, failed or we don't really work on it too much anymore. So I totally relate to that. And yeah, there's definitely no perfect founder. But something that I really, really liked when, I was sort of doing my research on you, trying to figure out who you are. I saw one of your posts, and this goes back to your point about just making things. I think this ties in perfectly with that. Is that you said, basically, you know, a message to educators, mentors, people of influence. Yeah, as you probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, like don't bring people who are passionate down. Like don't bring people who want to make things, no matter what it is, even if they literally know nothing. Just don't bring them down because I think the slightest bit of critique to someone who's a beginner can just totally kill your whole vibe, and that's a really big problem I think in engineering and computer science. Like that's a huge thing. And yeah, I've sort of made it my goal too to even friends or whatever who are curious about things, even if I know a little bit more than them, just trying to be like, yeah, I'll help you out in whichever way I can, because I've totally been hit with that where it's like nothing and someone's like, how do you not know that? It's like just
All right.
deflates you so bad. So I love that you said that, and I would love for you to expand on that a little bit more.
Yes. So, all right, because my brain's going in a million different
Yeah,
directions. As it
yeah,
always
yeah,
does.
yeah. You can
So
take your-
to fill you guys in, what he's referring to is a LinkedIn post that I made at like 1 a.m. because I was just really frustrated. I see this all of the time
Yeah, me too.
where people are, it's like glass half full, glass half empty, or however you want to put it. Where it's like people there's a million plus reasons why something is going to fail. And what I see all the time, is there's going to be someone really passionate who wants to build something, and they're going to go to someone, and it's the worst when it's educators. All right, so educators and mentors and advisors, please keep this in mind. I know you guys probably have your best intentions in mind, but just keep this in mind. All right. The students go to them and then they're like, oh, like you can't do that because, you might fail, or, it's going to be difficult, or whatever. They're going to come up with a million different reasons why you're going to fail. In my mind, right, every time I build something, like most of the times when I build something, it doesn't work the first time. And yet we label that failure, but failure, that's not failure, that's learning, right? So I just learned how not to do the thing, right? And I would also argue that like if everything just worked the first time I built it, I'm not really learning from that, right? Like I could just luck out and things just function. But by breaking it, right? So what was it? Boston Dynamics has the whole saying like build it, break it, fix it, right? So they build something, they break it, they now see, okay, well, this is the weak point in the system, and now they reinforce that part of the system, so now it's even better, right? So they build it, they break it, they fix it, and that builds you up to be a better system, right? And that failure is so important because that's where you actually learn. You see how variables end up changing the system as a whole. And now you have a better understanding of how that system works. Otherwise, it's just kind of like a black box that's functioning. You don't know why it's functioning, but it's functioning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You got to iterate. There's so many ideas. It's something I've like learned too. Like it's hundreds at times. So yeah, I totally agree with you. That's why I really wanted to bring that up. And I think just to give a personal experience, and like I'd be curious to hear what you have to say too, Zidanni, because I feel like we're in a very like similar, like point in our lives. But in my personal experience, the educators who have like uplifted me rather than brought me down have made like all the difference. Like really, I mean, in every aspect. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like shout out a few of my teachers. Shout out Mr. Morangi. I hope, yeah, I'll tell him to watch this. But yeah, yeah. Like I can honestly shout out so many people who I just like mentioned them that I want to do something that I knew nothing about. Even recently, I had like interaction with Steven's professor. And I asked her, like, I really want to get into like machine learning. I'm really interested in like natural language processing. Like, should I apply to this lab? Like, even though I know like zero, it's open to undergrad, should I apply? And she was totally like, yeah, like you said, yeah, here are the challenges. You're a freshman, like you don't really know too much about this more, convoluted like topic, but you should still apply. Like, why not apply? Why not throw yourself kind of into the deep end in a way? And yeah, I mean, she helped me like land my first internship this summer. So like, yeah, it's just people like that will really, uplift you. So I love that you said that. I totally agree with that. But yeah, what do you have to say about that
I
tonight?
no, I definitely see where you're coming from. Like anybody that wants to validate an idea wants to go to people that they think are smarter than them. They want to go to the educators, they want to go to the experts. And especially when, you go to somebody that's more technical in the area that you're in, they're more prone to see the flaws in your idea. And when they, provide their criticisms, it's really demotivating for you. But, when you look at examples like Airbnb, Uber, like so many people didn't think it was going to take off. Like such a stupid
Yeah.
idea. Just giving people
it's
your
so true.
homes, like letting them live in their homes, going to a stranger's car and letting them drive you. There were so many reasons it couldn't work. And if the founders of Airbnb and Google listened to their completely listened to, what people thought of it, they would have been stuck in a loop, trying to validate an idea, going to, like technical people or like experts in the area and asking them what they think. They shoot it down. They don't even get started. And it's an endless loop
Yeah.
of trying to find the perfect idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like, the only way that you could actually validate an idea is by finding product market fit in the actual audience of, see what they want and see what they're asking for, rather than listening to somebody that, you're not even marketing towards, telling you this isn't going to work because your audience wouldn't want this, but they're not your audience. So.
Yeah.
To drop a sick quote from this is a great video too. This is Jensen Huang's, the founder of NVIDIA, his talk at Stanford, I think in 2012 or 2011. But this is, to summarize what we said, I think this is a great example of, a really bad idea, quote unquote, becoming something huge. I mean, look at NVIDIA today, how massive they are. But actually when Jensen Huang first wanted to begin NVIDIA, so it's just going to be a computer graphics company. And at the time, there was no space for computer graphics. And actually, he was inspired by video games, to try to make video games look better, by creating better graphics cards. So you have, these, I guess, VPs and these like CFOs of these huge tech companies who are like, didn't believe in video games back then, obviously, because, they were for kids. But he talks a lot about in the talk about perspective, right? Like the perspective he has compared to someone else. And I really like a point that he makes is that, no one is like gifted, a perspective. Everyone has one, right? So you just depends on how you're going to utilize your perspective to make something that you think is meaningful. And you're going to get shot down, but imagine he had never gone through with NVIDIA. Like the world would actually be different. It's not something like, I guess, Uber where, it's still the world would be different. But I mean, imagine NVIDIA not existing. Like the world would be completely different. So it's just to say, if you really believe in what you're doing, take the criticism, but don't, let a negative, I guess, response shoot you down. I love that talk. So definitely, we'll probably link that in the description.
I forgot where, but I read somewhere that like the act of building in itself is embarrassing. You're
Yeah.
putting your passion out there for everybody else to see.
Yeah.
And in their right, they could form whatever opinions they have on what you're doing and they could comment on it. But, at the end of the day, you're the one that's actually doing something. You're the one that's building. And, it's just like a fact of life. Like, if you put yourself out there, people are going to, formulate their own opinions on what you're doing.
So with that, best advice to entrepreneurs out there, future entrepreneurs or anyone with an idea, all right? Constructive criticism is important. But if you're passionate about an idea, you're inspired by it, like be able to take constructive criticism, but like realize that like you have this vision in your head that people around you might not see, and they might never see it, or they might see it only after you finally built it and you're at your wedding cake solution, right? So try don't take it personally. Constructive criticism is important. And actually, they're unrelated, but a good book to read is The Mom Test, which kind of talks about how you can talk to your clients and or like talk to customers and actually get good feedback. It comes from being able to talk to your mom about an idea. Your mom is always going to be in supportive of your idea. It could be the worst idea ever. She's going to tell you all the reasons why it's the best. This is kind of like the opposite of that.
True.
So The Mom Test is a book about how to like talk to your mom about your idea and actually get valid feedback from it. But anyways, constructive criticism is really important. So be able to take it, but also realize that like you have this vision in your head, and if you are really passionate about it, about anything, I strongly believe that you'll find a way to make it work. And so like keep powering through, keep pushing through. Like there's going to be haters, there's going to be people criticizing you. But just ignore them and trust your gut that you're going in the right direction. You're going to second guess yourself quite a lot. I've been very fortunate enough to meet a lot of really amazing people, and they might look put together, but like everyone's figuring it out as they go. But just trust yourself that you have the vision, you have the pathway, you have the mind, like you're going in the right direction, and just stick with it.
I mean, just make it happen. Like worst thing at the end of the day, though, after you made, the worst thing is that you have a really cool project that you have on your portfolio, your resume. If you don't make it, you have nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because it's like very common thing. Like everything we're saying is like, that's like common, like self-help, I guess, advice, but it's so true. And I think hearing it from students, like, all three of us have like similar experience going to Stevens. I think it's very true. Like, yeah, definitely do it. So I actually have class at 2 p.m., but I want to ask you one final question.
Okay.
And you guys can continue after, like we mentioned before, but, I think this is something that I want to do like from now on in the episodes is like, sort of like, I really like quotes. So I'll like say a quote to you and I'll ask you, what do you think about it? I think this relates a lot to your experience. So this is actually in the like IT like building. It's actually up there somewhere, like on one of the walls or something. And I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but it goes something like this. So it's, if you want to go fast, you go alone.
Yeah.
And if you want to go far, you go together. And so as an entrepreneur and a founder, I think you definitely could relate to this, or at least, have something to say about this quote. So I want you to just give me your opinions on that, if that's true. And you did go alone, when you were building stuff in the beginning and you went fast, but now, you're working with teams in a lot of your endeavors, it seems. So I want to know, what do you think about that quote? Just.
Yeah. So a few points to that, and I feel bad because you're about to.
No worries.
Yeah. So it's very true. If you want to go fast, you go at it alone. But the best thing is like you can't build an empire by yourself, right? And so the best thing for you to do, you have to find the right people. Finding the good people are difficult, but you need to build systems in place. And what you need to do for yourself is figure out, who do you work well with? And once you find those people, once you find that good person, you have to give them the authority and just trust them to do a good job, right? Find people who resonate with your mission and give them the trust and authority and responsibilities that they need. Let them pick up, because why are you bringing this person on if you're going to micromanage them and not trust them to do a good job? Then just do it yourself, right? If you want to move really fast, do it yourself, but you can't do it all alone. So you need to find good people, and you need to work with them and build systems in place so that you can focus on the thing that you do really well and let them tackle the things they do really well. And if you don't trust them to do a good job, then don't work with them in the first place. But find really, really, really good people, and then trust that they will pull through and do what they need to get done. Don't micromanage them. Don't freak out over them, right? Trust that you're able to find the right person. And if you're second guessing it, then maybe they're not the right person. Maybe find some low risk way to start working with them. But yeah, like once you find a good person, give them the authority to do whatever it is they need to do. I find that that's also really empowering to the people, right? Like if you let people fill a shoe, they're going to grow to fill that shoe. And you can't be stressing over things. You need to focus on the thing that you're really good at. And so let them focus on the things that they're really good at.
Thanks, man, Terry. We'll get you a shout out, of course.
But if you had unlimited time money, resources, what would you build? What is your ultimate passion project?
Okay. Um, Hold on. We should cut this out. I'm gonna do it only because I get distracted very easily.
Okay.
It's great meeting you. Yeah, nice meeting you too. Okay, let's redo that.
All right. So if you had unlimited time, money, resources, what would you build? What is your ultimate passion project?
Okay. Yeah. So if I had unlimited time, resources. Okay. Well, first of all, I wish I could just like copy and paste like a million of myself. That way I could just have like a bunch of me's. That way I could focus on all the millions of different things I need to get done. No. But okay. If I could go into creative mode and build my dream passion project, it would be a set of systems in place to help people from all different stages um, pursue their passions and build basically take their dreams and make them realities, right, from all different stages from life. So from middle school all the way till until you die, like from whatever stage in life you're at, being able to help guide them through all different stages of ideation to massive large corporation. And so I would love to have a network of different like innovation campuses all around the world, with the top people focusing on, you know, legal and marketing and IP protection and branding and whatever, the top machinist in the world and all of the top innovation, all in these little hubs that network with each other and provide the tools and resources to empower people to pursue their things. So whether it's like co-working space or shared innovation space, shared research space, where now all these different people can collaborate with each other and form all these different startups and just create value into this world, helping each other and kind of growing together. Um, that is what I would love to see. And I would love to see this as like a global thing all across the United States and Europe and Asia, and just this massive network of innovation and creating value and helping startups and helping passionate people pursue their dreams. That would be my giant passion project. I don't know if I mentioned earlier at the interview, but like my life purpose is on, I want to build cool things and I want to help other people build cool things. And so, if I could go into creative mode, I would build a network to support both me and other people being able to build cool things and solve problems.
Yeah, and like startup culture, it just doesn't really exist outside of the US. And then again, even in the US, it doesn't exist in like most of the US.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in the state of startup culture. Culture is really important, and okay, actually, that's another very important part. I thank you for bringing that up. In whatever endeavor that you're doing, culture is really important. Like the company culture at your initiative is really, really important, and you can't like force culture, right? And startup culture is really important. And so like I would love to see these communities could kind of bring people together, because like starting a company can be a really lonely thing, right? Like you're not like I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of people in the similar spaces, building their own companies or running their startups, raising money. Like I'm surrounded by a lot of people in the similar space. And so, but there's a lot of people not like in that community, but it's a lonely space, right? Like, so most of my friends who've graduated from school, they're just going to a 9 to 5, or they're moving across the country, wherever they can get work. And like building, like being irrationally obsessed with solving a problem can be kind of lonely. And so startup culture, I feel like, is really important, because now you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are crazy enough to think that they could change the world and are willing to help you figure it out together. And yeah, so I would love to create these community centers to kind of bring that all together.
Um, I guess second question would be, you've done a lot of things in your life so far. I say thing because it's not really just companies and startups. What would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
Okay. Well, um, the thing I'm most proud of. All right. Well, I'm gonna throw in the one fun one, but this is not something that I'm most proud of. Completely unrelated. But I don't know if you guys know, but there's a project called Build the Earth. It's a Guinness World Record holding project. And so I'm responsible for the New Jersey build team, which is like 1,600 members. We're responsible for recreating New Jersey in Minecraft on a 1-to-1 scale. So that's a really cool thing that I've done. But the thing that I'm most proud of really has to be the iSTEM program here at Stevens. And so we talked a little bit about it. So my freshman year of college, kind of COVID happened. We had this tiny little closet. I worked with Professor McCoon. We ended up raising about $550,000 over the course of a few years to build a dream maker space, right? A place with 3D printers and CNC machines and co-working space, and this dream place for where we can cultivate this culture and allow the students to work together, and a place where we can call home in this academic setting where it's all classrooms and the library and I don't know, whatever, school. But we wanted something different than that, some place where we can call home. And so I worked with Professor McCoon, who runs the iSTEM and Launchpad programs, and we managed to raise a bunch of money. Thank you to the New Jersey government. Thank you to HDR Foundation. And of course, thank you to Emilio Fernandez and the support from the president from Stevens Institute of Technology for allowing us to do this. So we raised $550,000. Then we went to the school and we're like, hey, like we raised all this money. We have permission to buy all this equipment, but we don't have a place for it. So we submitted another proposal with like a 1,000 square feet with a floor plan. And we were like, this is our dream maker space. We need space like this so that we can build this out. And then the school gave us what used to be the academic tutoring center. We'll show photos of that. And so like, I consider that lab to be my baby a little bit, because every single thing in that room has been painstakingly, first of all, ordered by me for up until this point, ordered by me, painstakingly brought from the top floor of the Howe building all the way down, across to the library, all the way up to the third floor, unboxed and set up. And like, I love where we are right now, but I also feel like a lot of the students might not realize like where we came from. Like, oh, well, we had that comment before. He didn't realize what it looked like beforehand. Like, we didn't always have that space. We went from nothing, and now we have this beautiful space on campus, which I truly believe is one of the nicest places on campus. We have beautiful views of the city, and it's a place where we're able to call home. And so that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. But I also and now it's starting to grow to other universities. The program just raised $10 million from Emilio Fernandez. Again, thank you so much. And yeah, but not only that, so kind of feels like I went from like, being told that I don't belong, and then like cultivating this community where I feel like I could belong. But I kind of have this thought in the back of my mind, and so we'll see what happens with this. But a lot of the people from the iSTEM and Launchpad programs, like we're still really well connected, and we're constantly hanging out with each other. Like we did a trip in Miami together. I'm about to go to Madrid to visit Sam, who is one of the alumni and hosted a hackathon. His company Fungi hosted a hackathon here at Stevens. Like, we're still really well connected, and I say it all the time, but it's like this program is like my second family away from home. And we're all in the startup space. We're all solving problems, and not necessarily just like for-profit companies. We have a bunch of people working on nonprofits. And like, I kind of feel like we might have our own kind of version of like the PayPal mafia, but just seeing how our outreach continues to grow, I'm really excited to see where the next like 10, 15 years end up coming.
Yeah, I'm really flattered when you said your own version of the PayPal model.
Well, let's see. I wouldn't be surprised. You guys got to watch out for the iSTEM program.
Final question.
Okay.
You are probably one of the most well-networked, well-connected person I know. Every time I talk to you, you're bringing up a new person that you met. It's like, whoa, you know this guy? So I guess, just some advice for college students, who don't really see the importance of networking or want to penetrate like an industry and just don't really know how to talk and like, know people. What is your best networking advice?
Okay, so best networking advice. I want to tie this together to I don't know if I mentioned earlier in the interview, so if I did, cool. If not, sorry for repeating myself. Um, I used to think college wasn't important because I was self-taught and everything you need to know could be on the internet. There's so much information on the internet. And in fairness, I do work in higher education a little bit, so I'm still on campus now. I help run the lab a little bit. Um, but so I'll say that. But I am very publicly not the best grades, and like I think that education is very broken in so many ways. So leave that as it may. Um, I didn't see the value of college education, but now, while it's way too expensive and that needs to be sorted, tuition is astronomically high across all the universities, and college debt is a massive problem. But I'm not going to get into that. I think that the value of a college education in my eyes is not the piece of paper. It's not the classes or the education that you're getting, although there is some value to that. And there's also some value in not knowing what you don't know. Um, and traditional education can give you a well-rounded, different set of perspectives. But I think the real value comes from fostering this community of like-minded individuals all nearby each other who are able to bounce ideas off of each other and network with each other. And then from the outset, like so many people, I've been able to meet so many amazing people from all over the place. And well, one aspect of that is, and okay, one aspect of that is I will shamelessly so I used to think I was going to get into game development, and I would reach out to some of my favorite game developers who I look up to, just send them Steam requests and just message them. And some of my best friends that I still talk to every single day for like over 10 years now, we're from that. And so like I would just reach out to my favorite game developers and just build a relationship with them and learn from them. And what I realized is like so many people are willing to help you. Like people want to see each other succeed. And so just reach out and don't hold back, right? Like if you want to reach out with someone, just put yourself out there, reach out, tell them what you're doing, tell what you might need help with, or just say hi, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And the other thing is like, I feel like traditional education does a good job at creating an alumni network, and like a sense of community that you can then leverage. And I feel like anything is whatever you make it to be. So take full advantage of it if you do that. I will say though, traditional education is not going to be for everyone. I think that that's okay. But I do now see the value of a traditional education. That being said, it is still broken and needs to come down in cost. And also there is not a one size fits all approach to education. So please, schools, keep that in mind. Not everyone's going to learn the same. But yeah, so my best advice to people when it comes to networking is just put yourself out there. And yeah, and realize like, because this is another problem I have this is social media though. People keep comparing each other to other people. And it's like, oh, like he has a bigger house than me or a nicer car or blah, 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 blah. But also like social media could be so fake. Like what you might not see is like that person is putting his vacation on the credit card, or like that car is actually being, it's a loan and he actually can't really afford the month-to-month payments. So like realize that not everything is as it seems, and just live 110% authentic to yourself. You don't have to impress anyone. Just go out there, live your best life, find problems that resonate with you, solve them, and just be the best version of yourself. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Okay, so just to like reiterate what you said, just to make sure that I'm understanding you. You want to cast a wide net when it comes to networking.
Yes.
Cold emails, a yes. You want to send it to like all the people that you find interesting, and chances are at least one of them is definitely gonna see it and reach out to you, because at the end of the day, they want others to succeed, and
Yeah.
they appreciate the effort that you put into like reaching out. And when you show effort and you show your passion, it kind of reaches other people.
Yes. Yeah. So reach out on Steam, on LinkedIn, email, whatever. Just say, hi, I'm from what, I appreciate your work with blah, blah, blah. And just like, hey, just put yourself out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Anthony. You
I'm just gonna say again, you went a million miles an hour. But
Apologize.
everything you said was absolutely amazing and super insightful. I'm sad that Emilio couldn't see the end of this talk, but near the end, you really got into it, and I really appreciate that. Again, it's it doesn't matter if it's embarrassing. If you're showing your passion to the world, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Get started. It's never going to be perfect, but that's okay.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.